Hello Pythoneer, and welcome to your 10th Python tutorial. In the last video, we looked at set data types. In this video, we are looking at Boolean data types in Python. Boolean expressions evaluate to either true or false. In a literal term, it is a question that requires a yes or no answer, respectively. Monkeys eat banana. It's true. Lions eat grass. It's false. So the expression would evaluate to true when it is correct, and then when it is not correct, it evaluates to false. The Boolean type has a built-in function called the bool that can be used to convert any value to a Boolean. So you can look at it in terms of numeric data types, where you can have 0 and then 1, 0 representing false and then 1 representing true. So if the value can be interpreted as a true or false statement, then you can use the bool. Let's now look at applications or when we can use the Boolean type. Now the first example we look at is when comparing two values. Is 10 greater than 8? It's true. Is 7 greater than or equal to 7? Is false. It's true, sorry. And then is 4 less than 3? Is false. So the comparison operator will compare two values and then return true or false depending on the results. You make comparisons in Python using the comparison operator. Let's switch to our code and then our code editor and then see an example in action. So I have 4 variables here, A, B, C, and then D, and they have their own values assignment. So to compare two numbers or two variables, I can use the print statement, and I want to compare A and B. So I would say A is greater than B. So I would say print A is greater than B, and then when I run, I get true. Now if I say print A less than B and then I run, I get false. So in the first instance, it checked A, which is 8, and then B, which is 4. So when I said A is greater than B, Python knows the value 8 and then B the value 4, and obviously 8 is certainly greater than B, and this returns a true statement. And when I do the otherwise, it tells me that no, because A can never be less than B. So this is an example of a Boolean expression using a comparison operator. So the other comparison operators, like if I say is A is less than or equals to B. So now when I say A is B and then 8 is B, running this statement returns true. Why? Because we are saying that A is less than or equals to B. Of course, A is not less than B, but it is equals to B, and so this expression results to true. So this is one application of a Boolean, and note that we said that Boolean expressions will return either true or false. Let's now look at another example of using Boolean expression, that is logics. A logical statement will compare two or more expressions and return true or false. So in a logical expression, we can use and, or, and then so on. So when you use and, what you are saying is that you expect that both sides of the expression should evaluate to true. So even if at least one of them evaluates to false, even if one of them evaluates to false, then it's going to render the whole of the expression as false. And when I use the or statement, even if at least one of the expressions out of several of them results to false, results to true, then it will render the whole expression as true. Let's look at an example in our code editor. So I will still work with the variables that I created earlier on. So I'm going to use an if statement, okay, an if statement. And in most cases, when you are doing logic operation, then in most cases you may be using the if statement. So I can say that if A is greater than B and D is greater than C, then do something. So print yes, and then I can say else. So I can say else print no. Now we are going to look at conditions in a later video. Okay, so when I run this expression, I get no. So in the first expression, A is greater than B, which is a false statement because A is 8 and then B is 8. Therefore, A cannot be greater than B. So this is a false expression. Now in the second part, D is greater than C. D is 12, C is 6. And this is a true statement. But because we are using an AND operator, logic operator, which is strict and maintains that all the expressions should evaluate to true, then because one of these expressions evaluates to false, then it's going to render the entire expression as a false statement. And because it's a false statement, the statement under the condition is not going to evaluate. So it skips and then performs in the else statement, which basically says that once every expression fails to evaluate, then you go ahead and then print it. What if I use the OR expression? Let's use the OR operator, logic operator, and then let's see the results. So when I run this, notice that this time around my code prints to yes. The first statement in the expression is false, as we saw earlier on, and the second part is true. Okay, now it is a 50-50, so one part is true and the other part is false. Now because we are using the OR expression, the OR operator, what it says is that if at least one of the sides of the expression evaluates to true, then render the entire expression as true. And so because of that, we get a true statement. And then because we have a true statement in this expression here, then the code under it is going to evaluate. And so that is why we have a yes statement. Okay, so now let's look at another use case. Okay, another use case, which is conditions. So we've already looked at conditions, okay, with AND and then OR, okay. So we could also use conditions with comparison operators, okay, like if 10 is greater than 11 and then so on. So we could, just as we're using this, let's switch back to our code. Okay, so you could see that over here we're using a mixture of that. So we're using comparison and then the logic operators, okay. So it's the same thing. So I can delete this code and let me delete this part of the code. Sorry. So I can delete this part of the code and maintain just one expression. So if A is greater than B, print yes, else print no. If A is greater than B, print yes, else print no. So it's obvious that we are going to get no because this expression here evaluates to false, and that is that. Okay, so let's look at the last application of Boolean, okay, and that is variables. So in brief, any variable that do not contain data, like an empty tuple, an empty list, an empty set, or an empty string, as well as 0 and then none, any data that has any of this as its value is going to evaluate to false, and vice versa. So let's look at this quickly in action. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete the code I have written so far. So I'm going to evaluate if these variables are true or false. Okay, so for B, I am going to say 0, and for D, I am going to say an empty list, and I could say E is none. Okay, E is none. Okay, so what we are going to do is that we are going to check these variables to see whether they are going to evaluate to true or false. So I told you earlier on that you can check if a variable evaluates to true or false, and null, empty, 0, empty data all evaluate to false, and data which are not empty, variables which are not empty are going to evaluate to true. So the way we do that is to use the function bool, and then we provide the variable we want to evaluate as the argument. So I can say bool A So I'll run this, ladies and gentlemen, and I have my results. So now let's look at the results and then see what they mean. So I print bool A. So bool A here has a value of 8, so it results to true. Bool B has a value, but it's 0, and so we read that 0 evaluates variables that contain 0 are false, and so we have that. Then bool C has 6, and so it's also true. Bool empty list also evaluates to false because it has no data. So it could be a list, it could be a set, it could be a dictionary. A list, a tuple, a dictionary. Okay. Now mind you, empty curly brackets here, it's an empty dictionary and not a set. Okay. So either way, it returns to false, and then none also return to false. Okay. So that's ladies and gentlemen, and I believe that you have learned a lot. I'll see you in the next video.